Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Nest. I'm your host, Joe Kraus. On today's show, like always, we'll cover the latest from the world of sports, from the Buffalo Bills and Buffalo Sabres to your Canisius Golden Griffins, as well as the top headlines from the national level. Joining me tonight, once again, is Mr. Joe Soisson on the far right, and making his first appearance on the show is Sam Brouwere. So, fellas, welcome to the show. Joe, nice to have you here another week, and Sam, welcome aboard. So here we go. The Buffalo Bills is our first topic tonight. They're starting to go into a downward spiral as the secondary cannot find a way to stop Tom Brady and the high-powered New England Patriots on Sunday, a 41-25 loss. Brady is now 26-3 all time against the Bills, a staggering statistic. In addition, the injury bug took another bite into the Bills roster as tight end Charles Clay and their sack leader Lorenzo Alexander both left the game, and their status is up in the air for this upcoming Monday night's game against the Seattle Seahawks. So, guys, we'll start with this. What were your thoughts on Sunday's game? Sam, we'll start with you.
It was obvious that the Bills were unable to capitalize on. They had all those injuries coming into the game, and they were not able to kind of escape the injury bug with more injuries coming out of the game with Lorenzo Alexander and Charles Clay, and they were not able to stop Brady on defense either because the loss of Aaron Williams really showed when Brady had a couple deep balls to Gronk and he had one to Hogan, so it definitely showed on Sunday the injuries that they have.
Joe.
Yeah, I think the Bills did a decent job of keeping up with the Patriots for the first half, and then things just kind of fell apart after the second half. Especially, it's like they lost all momentum after that kickoff return at the second half, and you just can't allow that to happen. And especially not with a team like New England. It's just they're just going to keep going until you find a way to stop them. So, I think one of the larger problems too, along with the injuries, was that none of the defense could make tackles at some points. There were no plays where you felt the Bills completely had control at any point in the game.
And I think the other thing, too, is that they couldn't get off the field because the offense was too inconsistent as well. I mean, you can't put the blame on Tyler Taylor because he doesn't have anybody at the moment to give him the ball. But also the offensive line has disappeared the past couple of weeks after a strong start. So I think that's another reason. And they recently signed Percy Harvin this afternoon. He'll be on the roster for the rest of the season, but we don't really know what to expect from him on Monday. He hasn't played in 6 months, but with all the injuries, obviously Percy Harvin is an upgrade, right, Tim?
Of course.
Yeah, Percy Harvin's going to be good. I think your other guy to look for is Hunter. He's going to be, I think, one of the bigger targets for Monday night when they play Seattle. And I also like the fact that Gillislee did not do bad. I think that he kind of stepped up in his role, which is surprising because he's almost a third-string back. But I like the way he played against the Patriots.
Yeah, I think that Mike Gillislee, he's obviously not LaShawn McCoy, but given what the circumstances are, he obviously had a good point. But, Sam, I know that Joe and Brian, who'll be here on our next show, we talked about what to expect for the second half of the season. And given what their current status is, what can we expect from the Bills the rest of the way?
Well, I think the Bills are going to finish out 9-7. I've kind of kept it with the predictions going all year. I think that they're going to be they still have some difficult games on their schedule. They got to travel to Seattle next week on Monday Night Football. Then they got to go to Cincinnati the following week, and then they still host Pittsburgh late in December. So definitely, if they can get some of these guys back, if they can get McCoy back and healthy, and hopefully Aaron Williams, I don't know what his status is currently, and Charles Clay and Lorenzo Alexander, maybe they can try to win a couple of these games, but we'll have to start seeing on a Monday night.
So real quick, we'll go down the line. I got the Seahawks winning on Monday, but Joe, do the Bills have a shot?
Well, I think it's going to be a similar situation last week. If the Bills have a shot, it's going to come from the defense making plays, and it's kind of rough when you have this many injuries going up against a team that people would write into the playoffs like Seattle. I still have Seattle winning this one, but I would keep it close.
Sam?
And I have Seattle 24-17. That would be the score that I picked for this game. If the Bills have any shot in this game, like Joe said, it's going to have to come from their defense, and they're going to have to kind of hide their offense, basically, and not try to make any big mistakes and just kind of control the football by running and just relying on Gillislee and Jonathan Williams, et cetera.
So, again, kickoff Monday night, this upcoming Monday, 8:30 on the West Coast. Staying with the NFL, Monday night's game between the Vikings and the Bears marked the end of the first half of the regular season, if you can hardly believe it. A lot of surprises at the top of the conference standings, and new breakout players have been the theme of the 2016 campaign so far. So, guys, if the season ended today, who would be your player of the year pick? Sam, we'll start with you.
You got to give it to Tom Brady. Since he's returned from suspension, it's not even arguable that he's been the best player on the field. He's led all in a lot of the passing stats. I believe he leads in yards and touchdowns since he's come back from the suspension, and they're on a very good chance for him to try to win his 5th Lombardi trophy.
But to a fair point, he's only going to play 12 games. I mean, do you think there's a shot that they'll give it to somebody that's played all 16?
Well, it's just because in the 12 games that he's going to play, he's arguably the best player in it. There's really no one else that's standing out to me from the other teams other than Brady at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. Joe, we'll go with you.
I think another guy to look for MVP is Matt Ryan. You know, Atlanta, if they're 5-3, so, you know, the 3 losses is kind of a bad mark on him. But other than that, Matt Ryan's done a great job of passing the ball around. He's got weapons to go to. I think he's thrown for plus 300 yards in the majority of his games, and he's continuously putting up good numbers. And that's what you need out of a team. That's what you want out of an MVP is continuously putting up good numbers. So I think, and he's in a division that it's fairly close. Even though Carolina's kind of fallen off, they won recently and they're right back in it now.
I think my pick would be, I know that mostly everybody's picking quarterbacks. I know a lot of the experts, but I think also, considering how Green Bay did last year without him, Jordy Nelson could be a pick for Player of the Year, because obviously Green Bay, they're only 4-3, but their offense has strived unbelievably with him back in the roster. That chemistry with Aaron Rodgers is finally back, and now the injuries to Eddie Lacy and UB product James Starks in the backfield, they're going to be relying on him a lot more. So Jordy Nelson, if he can continue to put up big numbers, he could have a big year. But I also agree with Brady and Matt Ryan, and the Falcons are having a great season too, and of course New England as always. But moving on now, what about our coach of the year? Joe, we'll start with you.
I gotta go with Jason Garrett. I mean, Romo goes out, he picks up Dak Prescott, and you got Ezekiel Elliott. So 2 rookies starting in 2 important skill positions, and you go 6-1, and your one loss was your very first game against the Giants, who they're not too bad this year. So I think that's worth something. I think that's impressive in itself, and you also got to take into account the fact that they've had injuries as well. Des Bryant was out, Terrence Williams was out for a time. Their leading receiver is Cole Beasley, who until probably this point, not many people think of as a top receiver.
Especially with Des Bryant's injury, and unbelievable what the Cowboys have done. Sam, who is your coach of the year for the first half?
Well, Joe, I don't mean to stick with the Patriots, but undeniably it's got to be Bill Belichick. He lost his star quarterback for 4 games and was able to come out with a 3-1 record, even starting a third-stringer Jacoby Brissett in a game and winning against Houston Week 3. So I think with Bill Belichick right now, the Patriots are the best team right now in the AFC at 7-1 currently. So I think that Bill Belichick has another good shot to win his 5th Lombardi trophy this season.
I think my pick is Jack Del Rio from the Oakland Raiders. Nobody, and I mean nobody, expected the Oakland Raiders to be 6-2 through 8 games. What he's done with Derek Carr at quarterback, who some are considering to be the best young quarterback out there. Dak Prescott still has a way to go, but what he's done with Carr and Amari Cooper on the outside coming out of Alabama and UB product Khalil Mack, that defense is brutal. And that's going to be a tough game for the Bills later this season when they have to host the Raiders. But Jack Del Rio, I mean, nobody expected him. This could be a renaissance here for him as well, considering his struggles in Jacksonville and his other spots over the years. So Jack Del Rio is my pick, but those are also solid picks too, but we still have another half to go. With that being said, there's been a lot of surprising teams, but if there's one that stuck out to you the most, which one would it be?
From a surprising team angle?
Yeah.
All right. It'd probably be the Minnesota Vikings. Before the season, just a couple days before, they lost their star quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, to a knee injury, and then they traded for Sam Bradford from Minnesota. And then, so everyone kind of wrote them off because they didn't think that Bradford, had the ability to lead them as like Bridgewater did. So they've kind of just shown what they're capable of this season by going 5-2, and now they're first in the NFC North. I know they lost last night, but their production from early in the season from their defense should continue.
Joe?
My surprise team is going to be the Tennessee Titans. And they're not in the playoffs right now. They're technically 7th in the AFC, but they're only a game out of the playoffs. If they win once, they'd be tied with Houston for first in the AFC South. And if you look at Tennessee, the only name that comes to mind is Marcus Mariota. And I think that's worth something because they've got such a young team, and they're 4-4, and they're just one game out of the playoffs right now. I think that is surprising in itself.
My pick is, like I said earlier, the Oakland Raiders, a 6-2 record. Nobody expected them. They could possibly give New England a run for their money this year, but Denver is also a top team. So like we said, we still have another half to go. So if you enjoy football, you still got a lot more months to go. So while the Bills lost consecutive games, the Buffalo Sabres won 2 in a row this past weekend with victories over the Florida Panthers and the Winnipeg Jets. They outscored their opponents by a score of 6-1. So obviously it's been a contrast from our show last week when we were talking about the Sabres struggles. But now they've turned things around, and we'll start with you, Joe. What stood out to you this past weekend?
The goalie play. Leonard, Nielsen, they both did great. They made 30 saves. Leonard made 37 saves. Nielsen made about 25. And I was so happy with the shutout. Finally, the goalies are stepping up.
Sam?
The offense, the ability to score. They got goals, a couple goals from Okposo this weekend. I believe it was 3. They got one from Larson, they got one from Reinhart, and then they got another one I can't remember off the top of my head. But definitely their ability to score. That's something that's definitely they need to continue on.
And maybe it's because they were still having the early season jitters, but the offense couldn't really gel at all. But now that they are, Sam Reinhart finally got his first goal of the season, and it's still going to be iffy how they do the rest of the first half with Jack Eichel and Evander Kane still out, but still a bright spot. So lots more hockey to go, and it's an exciting time for Buffalo sports. Coming up, we break down the latest from Canisius Athletics from the last 168 hours, as well as a look at the men's basketball 2016-17 campaign. That and more when Inside the Nest rolls along. Stay with us.
Beginning in my sophomore year at Canisius, I was part of a research team developing treatments for children with high-functioning autism. This kind of research involvement usually only happens at the graduate or postdoc level, and I did it as an undergrad at Canisius.
Want to achieve more than you ever thought possible? At Canisius College, you can. A Canisius education is packed with extraordinary opportunities like top-level scientific research, global service experiences, and real-world connections. Want to intern at a Fortune 500 company? Want to get into the best medical and law schools? Want to be a champion for social justice? You can. Here.
Welcome back, everybody, to Inside the Nest. Here is the latest on what happened since our last broadcast around Canisius. The women's soccer team season ended on Saturday afternoon, October 29th, with a 3-0 loss to Quinnipiac in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference quarterfinals. However, congratulations to Coach Clark and the ladies as they finished the season with 8 wins, their most since 2011. Greta Dry will look to pick things up next fall for the Golden Griffins. The freshman from Lockport finished with 8 goals on the season, the most for a first-year player since Brianna Smith recorded 15 in 2010. And to the ice, the Golden Griffins took a road trip to Happy Valley for a 2-game clash with Penn State, the 19th ranked team in the country, and well, it wasn't a happy outing. The Nittany Lions outscored the blue and gold 8-3. However, goaltender Daniel Urbani had an impressive outing on Friday night. The freshman recorded 61 saves, tying the most of the game in program history. The Golden Griffins begin their 11-game stretch of conference play this Friday night at the Harbor Center against RIT. Puck drop is at 7:35. Well, it's been said that a spoonful of sugar helped the medicine go down, and while Canisius basketball fans hope that a man named Witherspoon can help their team find success this season. That's right, the Reggie Witherspoon era of Canisius men's basketball kicks off this month. The men's basketball squad hits hardwood for their first exhibition under the former UB coach as they host Ryerson this upcoming Monday before they take part in the Bluegrass Showcase. Their first regular season game is Sunday, November 13th, when they face the Kentucky Wildcats in that showcase, who are ranked second in the first AP poll released earlier this week. This is their 5th all-time meeting. So heading into the season, there's a lot to talk about, guys. We got a new coach, some new pieces on offense. So we'll start first with who is your breakout player to watch for the Golden Griffins. Sam, we'll start with you.
Well, I look at Kiefer Dowse. He was one of only 2 players to return for the Griffs that started games last year. He started, I believe, 6 games last season. He has very good size. When he was on the court, he definitely was able to score for the Griffs. I think he had 12 points against Ryder, so he's definitely a guy that's going to take on a leadership role as he's a senior on this team and one of the 10-year players that's been here before.
Joe?
Phil Valenti. I think he started all the games, all 33 games last season, and he averaged 6 rebounds. I think he's going to be a guy that the opponents will single out and try and take away.
And just like what he did last year, he averaged 14 points per game, 6 boards. So I agree, he's going to be a big presence. But my guy, a local fella named Jermaine Crumpton, a redshirt junior, 6'6", came out of Niagara Falls High School. I remember watching him play his senior year at the Falls because I was a freshman at good old North Tonawanda. But he averaged 10 points per game last season off the bench under Jim Barron, and hopefully he can reboot his career under head coach Reggie Witherspoon because he has a lot to bring to the table. And speaking of Reggie Witherspoon, he had a lot of success at UB, like we mentioned, but it's obviously going to be a very it's going to be a process for them to turn things around under Witherspoon. So what can we realistically expect? We'll start with you, Sam, since you witnessed last season under Coach Barron.
Well, the Griffs finished in 8th place last year in the MAC conference. So, and half of their team, of their 14 players right now, is new. So it's definitely going to have to see how the team meshes. All these new pieces, like you said, Crumpton, some guys that were returning from last year, definitely bring a lot of talent for the team. So I believe that they can possibly move up a couple spots if the talent meshes well. But I could also see it also going in the other direction if it doesn't mesh well in year 1.
Joe?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's going to be it's going to come down to how these players mix together. It's also going to come down to a bit of strategy, and I'd say give it a few games, and we'll see how this team, how their offense does, how their defense does. There's a lot of question marks right now, so I think give it a few games, and then we'll know how this team's going to do.
I agree. I think we're not really going to find out what the team is going to be until they start getting into conference play in January. But they have some pretty big games that could bring them together early on. They're right out of the gate. They play Kentucky, the 2nd team in the country. So that'll be interesting to see. And then also the Big 4 Classic is back against UB. They had a tough overtime loss to the Bulls last year, which was a very close game. And also played against St. Bonaventure, another rival. And then in conference play, it's going to come down to how they do against Iona and Siena. They have to start winning those big games against the top teams in the conference. But it's going to be interesting. I think that maybe not this year, but by the end of year 2, possibly year 3, Canisius could be a top team. And real quick, the last time Canisius played the number 2 team in the country was back in March of 1961 when they faced number 2 ranked St. Bonaventure. So it's been a pretty long time since they've played a top team. Also, the 99th time they've played a top team in the AP. So exciting times here at Canisius with college basketball right around the corner. So it'll be exciting. So if you're looking for something to do, make sure to stop by and join the C Block because they could use a lot of people. It's going to be amazing this month. So coming up after the break, we share our final thoughts of the week in the world of sports. You're watching Inside the Nest on Griff TV.
Everyone loves the picture I posted of you.
AT&T reminds you, it can wait.
The Golden Griffin Fund is a student-run investment program. We would do all the work that an equity analyst would do in the real world, but we're getting this experience fresh out of college. Coming to Canisius will prepare you for the real world.
And welcome back to episode 2 of Inside the Nest. Thank you all for tuning in. our final segment, we call it here the Final Out, which is our final thoughts of the week. So we'll start with Joe, with what you noticed this week in the world of sports.
This week, I'm looking to the NFL. There's the primetime games. You got Falcons, Bucks should be good. Bills, Seahawks should be good on Monday night. And your Sunday night game, Broncos, Raiders. All three of those games, I think, are going to be real close and real fun to watch.
Sam?
Well, I want to talk about Cleveland for a minute. Cleveland went from being a laughingstock city, like no one really would talk about Cleveland for sports. They never went together, and that now, after the Cleveland 30 for 30, they won the NBA championship. Now they have a chance to win the World Series tonight as they host the Cubs in Game 6 in Cleveland in front of their home fans. And they also, the Browns probably are going to get the first overall pick in the NFL draft. So there's a lot to look up to in Cleveland. So wake up, Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to make a couple of additions to that 30 for 30. But my big thing this week is, dear college football, please adopt the overtime, or the NFL, adopt the overtime rules that college football has, because it'll make it a lot more exciting. Because a couple weeks ago, I watched the Ohio State-Wisconsin game, and that was a heck of a finish. And then you watch the NFL with the Bengals, another tie with the Redskins, a 27-27 draw, and also the Seahawks and Cardinals tie that ended 6-6 because kickers clearly can't make an extra point attempt for their life. But I think for me that what college football, it's great because they have both teams that start at their own 20-yard line, and then it basically comes down to whoever can score a touchdown in the fewest downs possible. So I think that's what the NFL should do. It will make the games a lot more exciting. I mean, a tie, no one's satisfied with a tie. You either want the affirmative win or the affirmative loss. So I think that the NFL, you got to catch up to the ties, man. I mean, you really do. You got to catch up to the times. But real quick, World Series, going to be wrapping up this week. Who we got winning?
I've got Cleveland tonight.
And I've got Cleveland tonight also.
So they're going to win. They're going to win the whole
Cleveland.
thing.
Yep.
I'm going to go with the Cubs. I think the Cubs have a really good shot. Hopefully they can turn things around because they have the talent. It's just going to come down to how they face the Cleveland pitching. So that's going to do it. Inside the Nest will be back on the air November 15th as we'll be live streaming the presidential election results. So be sure to tune that. Also, be sure to check out our Facebook page, hit the like button, give us all a smile on our face. So for Joe Soisson and Sam Brouwere, I'm Joe Kraus. And the next time you're at Canisius, make sure to come inside the Nest. Have a good night, everybody.